Normally, I don't like to make negative content. It strains me and just isn't worth it half the time. However, the end of tragedy is where I have to make an exception. So let me walk you through the episode. In a nutshell, Bear arrives on Soder with the motor rail, and banter happens between him and Francis. In the shed, it's revealed that Samantha has mental fatigue and she's at Crovan's gate. Now, by this point for me, it seemed like Victor wanted to trick theorists into biting the Sam is going to die bait. However, the power of foreshadowing exists, and we know that Reginald is going to die in this episode. This was further cemented when Reginald took both trains to Barrow and was selected for the motor rail train. Okay, I assume that the motor rail is going to do him in and derail him, having a similar to death to Jeffrey. I expect to see of him leaving Barrow and going onto the mainland and following him until the accident happens. What I was surprised about was the time skip, but I still thought that the accident would be shown, and even when the shed scene came up, I thought that we would transition over to what happened with Reginald on the mainland. But no, that just didn't happen. In reality, Mr. Watson told us that a signal failure out of all things did him in, not some derailment over a hill or something more interesting. No, a points failure is what did him in, and we're just left with that alone and then credits. Now, forgive me for jumping the gun, perhaps, but this death is complete dog water. I have no idea if we'll see the accident in a flashback during the next episode, but still, this death reveal is single-handedly the worst decision Victor has made so far in the series. Why not show his death before it is revealed how he died or something? Anything but what we were given. It's a problem to of tell but no show, and I can forgive certain instances of this because we saw the accident and knew this character was dead. But no, instead we got his death being told to us but not shown. Hell, I'm going to use an example from season 5 of Thomas the Tank Engine. In Something in the Air, it's set up with Thomas foreshadowing the accident that's about to happen with Henry, and it builds tension because more foreshadowing is brought up until then, boom, the accident happens. We see the aftermath and the resolution to the episode. Now imagine as soon as Henry sets off, it cuts to a shot of the engine shed, and they're just talking about stuff until the Fat Controller arrives to tell him that Henry fell into the sea and died, and then the episode just ends right there. That's what this feels like to me. It feels like Victor wasn't trying to make Reginald's death interesting or impactful. You can only have an impact if the accident is shown. You can't have an off-screen death and expect the impact to work the same. You can't, and unless Grief shows the accident, which I have no idea will. Spoilers, it will, but I'll get there eventually. Then maybe it would have done some impact, but the structure of how his death is revealed instead of shown is completely asinine to me. It makes the deaths in season 5 look better by comparison. I mean, they were already good, but some people just didn't like it. This is just for comparison's sake. The most frustrating part about this is that Victor has done deaths like this before, and that was with Randolph as an example. This death worked because we already had a personal attachment, or rather, we knew what he was about, but at the same time, he was also introduced in that episode, so we weren't too attached or blindsided when he died. Not to mention that there were death flags when he succumbed to the mental fatigue when he was in the yard. Randolph's death worked because we didn't have too much of an attachment to him. This cannot be said for Reginald. Reginald was a character who stuck around for 7 whole seasons and 2 miniseries if you count the SCPs of Sodor. This is one of the OG characters and should have been given a death worth of a main character, not the death of a side character who only showed up for 1 episode. And I think that's why this death makes no sense to me. Because Reginald was given the death of a side character and not the one of a main character. The other deaths were shown. Even fucking Dudley was shown, and yet nothing for Reginald? The character who's been here since forever? Really? That's basically my Reginald rant or whole. And honestly, how do you mess something up this badly? Especially because the runtime is 14 minutes. Victor easily, I could even see it, padding the episode out to 20 minutes with Reginald's whole death sequence. He did so for Jeffrey, he did so for Thomas, he did so for Peter, he did so for Mickey, but not for Reginald. I initially did intend for the video to stop here. However, we are shown the aftermath of the accident in the preview for Grief, which is on Victor's Patreon right now. Now, this does not take away my criticism of how his death was shown. You don't pull this type of stuff on a main character or one of the main characters at all. You show us the accident in the same episode they died in, not in the very next episode. So my point still stands. You could have even ended the episode of tragedy with the accident and it would have been more impactful in my opinion. But anyways, that is my whole rant. Thank you for watching the video, and as always, peace.